I thought we'd spend the bulk of our time together today talking about the final project, the research paper, the research process as we have it, and kind of put you in a place to get started on that as early as possible. Some of you have already contacted me about your subjects, and like Matthew did here, we're trying to kind of drill it down, narrow it up, and getting that together. Yes, Linda, everything in the cover letter should be single spaced. You can do 1.5 spacing if you'd like. I think that's fine, but I think double spacing, it just looks like you're trying to take up room on a cover letter. So, I prefer single space, but 1.5 or 1.25 is fine as well. So the first thing we want to do is think about a topic, right? Topic generation. How many of you, by a show of hands or thumbs up, are kind of circling around some topic area? Okay, so some of us, about half by my count. Well, that's good. And it's okay for the rest of you to still be kind of spinning around a little bit. I know there's a lot going on, and it's difficult to think about how you want to start thinking about the process of research, because it's maybe not something that you have done a ton of in the past. And certainly the first year or two of college, research maybe means different things than it does in the last year or so of college or university education. I can remember specifically myself when I was a student and undergraduate, the leap from year 2 to year 3 was actually probably the most difficult transfer of how to apply what I was learning and how to do better. So if you're struggling with that right now, if this is your first semester in your 3rd year of college, you're in a perfectly normal place. It's, like I say, it's sometimes difficult to make that leap. Year 1 and 2, really about jumping through hoops. Really about, okay, I got to write a 1,000-word, 5-paragraph essay on this subject, and it's got to be just okay, and I'll probably get an A because, this isn't very difficult. You go and take your psych classes, same thing, a short paper, you got to have your in-text citations and move on. And the process of research, depending on how you do your research, maybe you never moved away from Google Scholar, or maybe you never moved away from even just Google Prime, if you will. And that's just simply not going to cut it for the rest of your life. Sad to say. Google can do a lot. And I'm going to tell you how to use Google. And I'm even going to talk to you about how to use, Wikipedia to your advantage when you're researching. Oh, good morning, Latoya. Yeah, I've got you on the attendance. You haven't missed too much. I'm just, we're tucking in and talking about the research paper and final project. So the first thing let's talk about here is I'm going to, a little presentation for you, always. There are always pathways, there are always guides, and there are always ways of thinking about a project. When we look at the research paper and I call it more of a project because it's a full term length project. You need to have you propose a topic, and then you do research, and then you write an annotated bibliography, or you start one, and then you do your presentation, which has part of your annotated bibliography is, part of the presentation. And then you turn in your final paper, which is your research paper and your annotated bibliography. One of the things that I think is advisable, A, is to start early, and B, as you are researching, I think it is heavily advisable to think about writing, or at least starting to write, your annotated bibliography. Does anybody know the purpose of an annotated bibliography? Some of you may have written them for other classes. So I want to know what the purpose you were given for those was previously, because I may have a different view. Or was it foisted upon you as simply a task?
In the past with annotated bibliographies, they usually short snippets of actual what you research, what you went into for the paper, and also link your research to your actual paper somewhat.
Yeah, that's an excellent place to start. I tend to shape them a touch differently, but generally that's good. Number one, you want to be able to get a good summary of what the author or authors of the paper have put out. And number two, you know, yeah, you want to think of, for me, it's about evaluating the source. So the two kind of factors in the annotated bibliography for this class are one paragraph of summary and one paragraph of evaluation. Because I want you to think about the fact that you may not find that every source that you research is going to be valid, which I know that sucks, because if I remember my time as an undergrad, if I needed 5 sources, I'd go to the library webpage or just go to the library, find the first 5 things that matched up what I was looking for, and that's what I was using. And it didn't matter how good they are, how old they were, how inappropriate they might have been for the subject matter. It was simply a matter of jumping through the hoop, doing the task, and getting done. Third year, things got a bit different for me, where I had to start thinking a little more deeply about what I was using and not settling for the first couple of things. So I do want to emphasize the fact that research makes everybody, that's a big word, right? Research makes everybody a bit nervous, I think, because it's time consuming. It's painful. The academic articles that you're going to read are a bit thick, and sometimes they're not written for, you know, regular human beings. You know, so you're sitting at a stack of books like this and you're just confused. Your mind is just numb. Although this guy kind of looks like his mind has been blown by what he just read. So, you know, there's this idea of like discovery, but also way too much information, you know, a stack of books. I like this guy. This was me, head to the keyboard all the time, or head desk, you know, just pounding your head down on, because you just can't make any of it work. It's difficult, and parts of your head and brain are hurting that you never knew existed. And then this, like this is like the very end of like the research process, where you're just over it and you are primal screaming into the void because there's either too much or too little information, or you don't know how to synthesize that information into your argument. And I'm going to teach you in this class how to kind of conquer all of these things, and specifically how to research maybe a bit more effectively, and also how to write a little more effectively so that your writing works in a better fashion. Now, the college, just curious, is this obscured for you by the chat window and the participant list, or am I the only one that can see those on my Zoom feed? Okay, you can see the full research pathway. Nothing is blocking it. Okay, not blocking. Good, because that's fantastic. Okay, so here's the deal. The research pathway is something that the library here and some people in the English department developed. I've kind of adopted it for this class because I like the way it functions. The first thing that happens is you get an assignment, right? You know, you've all received your final paper assignment. You have all received the instructions that you're going to do. And probably the first thing you felt was, and well, I'm recording, I don't care. The first thing you probably looked at was, you know, oh shit, not another one of these effing things. Sorry to use such coarse language, but that's probably how some people thought about it. A research paper, dear God, help me. And then you were uncertain, because you start reading the instructions and you start looking at things like, you know, I've got to have 5 sources for my annotated bibliography. I've got to put 3 of them in the paper, got to have an argument, you know, not this again, right? I mean, some of you probably, oh, it is blocked. I'm sorry. I'll dip all of this stuff down for us then. Okay, is that better? Hopefully. Sorry about that. Just got so many technical tools here. All right, so uncertainty, right? Definitely where you should be right now. What I want you to do, as I've asked you, is think about your career goals, or think about your degree path. What is it that you want to do? What kind of research can you do that will help you meet that goal? What is it in the program that you're learning that maybe you don't grasp onto well enough, or that you think you could use some additional work on? Or what is something in your degree path that you find fascinating and you want to do more work, or something about your career that you find fascinating? So consider, you know, and here you should be thinking about, you know, utilizing the instructions and your big brains. The next thing that comes up is you're like an explorer. You're, you know, in uncharted territories. You're digging around in databases. you're seeing how much information is out there and available. And you get a bit happy. You get real happy about this. You're like, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. There's a ton of material out here. I can get this done. And here you start thinking about developing your topic. When we met with Liam the other day, he mentioned, brainstorming sessions from the reading lab. And that's a great idea to try to book in one of those, and try to book it in rather soon. Actually, it'll help you out. You can go and you can say, these are my instructions. This is my degree path. This is the career that I have. I want to think about, this problem. It can be fuzzy and nebulous and not focused. And the folks specifically in the reading lab, the reading specialists, I guess it's all kind of the same. Reading and writing are now the same. They're going to be able to help you brainstorm and drill down onto your topic. You can use textbooks. The one from this class may or may not help you very much, but certainly if you're thinking about something in one of your other classes, the textbook can help you there. Think about the nomenclature, the words, the vernacular that you want to use when you're researching, the notes you've taken up to this point in your course, your general knowledge. Again, never sell your own knowledge and experience short. You have a ton of it. You just have to learn how to apply it to, this academic setting. And again, you can do maps, organizers, all that sort of stuff if you're into that sort of thing, or outlines. So again, that's just a bit of exploration. This is also a good point where maybe you're thinking about reading trade journals. If you're really stumped, reading the various journals for your field can help you get a sense of what the conversations are, what's hot right now in HR, what's hot in cybersecurity. And again, those are very good things to know. And it will help you, pay some manifest benefits for you. So once you get a little bit of an idea, your topic is developed, you have a subject area, you're starting to hone it and focus in on it a little bit, then you have this thing where you're just trying to gather as much information as you possibly can about that subject from a variety of sources. Here is where it gets tricky for a lot of people. Things get out of control. You're on Google, you end up on Wikipedia, you're reading newspapers, you're reading trade journals, you're in books, you're in references, and all of a sudden you're feeling like that first or second person on the list. Probably the first guy with the stack of books. You're confused. You're like, there's too much to talk about. That's fine. This is where you start to carve things out and say, okay, much like a sculptor, with a piece of, marble, you're chipping away at the stuff, trying to find the beauty, trying to find that idea. So again, all the digital sources are good here. Now notice you're not collecting anything really, except for a trade journal article, from any of these first couple of steps that you might apply to your research paper. This is you just having a look, figuring out what's going on, what piques your interest. Possible, Matthew, we'll have to specify that a bit further. But yeah, that's a good start. Definitely a good start. One thing I tell students all the time here, and this is one of those mnemonics that actually a student complained about it, but I think it's an accurate mnemonic memory device. What you want to do is you're starting to read things, as you're starting to develop in this pre-search phase, you're thinking about two things. You're thinking about P's and buts. And we'll talk about both of those here in a second. P is a problem, not urination, not excretory functions, but you are looking for problems. You're reading a paper and there's a problem. You have a problem with the way this author's making their case, or you have a problem with the conclusions or the methodology that the author had. That's a problem. And it's always a good point as you're doing research to find a problem, say, wow, I want to write a paper that addresses this. Or if you're thinking about your industry, like Matthew, my wife's an artist, so I can speak to this a little, with some, level of experience. The mistreatment or the lack of payment of artists, the idea of, do it for exposure sort of thing, that is a big problem within that industry. And maybe you want to look at ways in which artists and graphic designers and creative people can take care so that their work is copyrighted, trademarked, always credited, assigned to them, so that they make sure that they have all of their legal rights to their work. And that's, a problem. And you're going to write a paper that might address some of that, for example. The other side of that are the buts. Now, what got me in trouble previously was I mentioned that butts are fascinating. It's an axiom. I study a lot of art history as well. And all, you can't look at a piece of art without seeing somebody's butt. Also, if you watch Bob's Burgers, the teenage daughter Tina is completely fascinated with them. But those are not the butts that I'm talking about here. I am talking about butts with one T butts. When you are reading a paper, when you're engaging with some text, you might think to yourself, this is really good. I really like everything that this author is on about, but I don't like this. But I would come to a different set of conclusions. And that's another excellent place to find a little bit more focus and find an area. This is going to be really important for you with some of the capstones where you're looking to create a problem statement. I'm not asking for a problem statement as such in this class, but within the capstone, you will be doing those, and in some of your other classes. This is like a very kind of like a toe in the water way of thinking about a problem statement. Either you have a problem or there's a but in the paper that you get fascinated by, and you're like, I can really write about this because this is really speaking to me, and I really now have something to say about this. Okay, so that's your pre-search. Focus. This is kind of where the heavens open up, angels sing, enlightenment dawns, clarity comes in. You're like, yeah, I really want to write about the best practices for safeguarding my creative work. Everything opens up. This is where you're really, again, your thesis, which you've already put forth, maybe a provisional thesis statement. This is where you're honing and sharpening that thesis statement. You're making it more incisive. You're making it more applicable. Again, you're writing your ideas down. You're taking notes furiously. You're in the textbooks. And again, you're looking for gaps as well sometimes. You can think of problems, you can think of buts, and you can think of gaps. Those are all places where you're going to find a way to write or a place to write in. Okay, focus is nice. This is where it all starts to get really, it starts to come together. Now at this point is when you're really doing serious data collection. Now hopefully up to this point, you've probably, done a little bit. But here, where you start that evidence collecting, you're focused. You now have a good set of keywords and all the synonyms that are required to do a good quality library search for your materials. You know what you want to find. You know the sort of materials you're trying to find. You know the sort of articles or arguments that you're looking for. And maybe you even know some of the key authors in your field. You're starting to zero in on some of those people. This is an excellent time to work with a librarian. We're going to have a librarian come into class next week and talk us through a serious deep dive. I'm going to take you on a mini deep dive this morning so you can get started. But when she comes in, she is going to really show you how to really get the most out of the resources that are available to you. Throughout this entire journey, I want to point out, you need to make sure that you are taking good notes. The worst possible thing that can happen when you're writing on a tight deadline, like in a college class, is you read a paper, it's absolutely fantastic. Maybe you printed out a hard copy of it, it was so good. But then you lose that hard copy and you look and you've taken no records of who the author was, what journal was it in, what was the DOI number. So again, I implore you to think about starting your bibliography while you're writing, especially if you come across something that just looks too good. Start working on it. That way you have a record. You can go back and find that article again. This is also a good point where you can work with the folks in the reading and writing lab to think about taking your text and transforming it into evidence, taking those articles and really working with them so that they can fit within your writing style. There's a lot of databases. I'm going to show you some of them here. JSTOR is great. I love JSTOR. It's not as applicable, I think, to the businesses as it is to the humanities, but JSTOR is fantastic. Everything you find in JSTOR is full text PDF. Oh, and by the way, never, ever pay for an article. Never. Go to the library. If you find something through the databases and it takes you to the link for the publisher, for the journal, and it says, hey, for only $72, You can have a copy of this article. Do not pay that money. Go find somebody at the library, email them, say, I need this article. I need it for a paper. Please help. And they will do their very best to try to find you. They can probably get it for free. We have partnerships with all the colleges and universities in Florida. So where we might not have a subscription to that journal here at Palm Beach State, UCF or FSU or FAU might have it, and they'll send a digital copy. You do need to give them a couple days. This isn't the sort of thing you can wait until the very last minute to do and hope that it works out. This is the sort of stuff you need to, plan ahead and plan for. Okay. Very little writing has happened, right? Maybe you've worked on your annotated bibliography up to this point, but here now it's like you're done researching, you've read your text, you have your 5 sources, worked on your annotated bibliography, you've selected the 3 that you're going to put in your paper, and now it's time to write. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on, or that should go on, before you start the writing process. And I implore you to consider that and budget some time in, if not every day, certainly a couple of times a week, to try to get some of this done. Are there questions so far on this? This is available on Blackboard, by the way, this research pathway document. So I think it's a good thing to reflect on. Are there any questions up to this point? I needed a pause. I had to 2-fist my beverage there. Earl Grey tea and water. All right. Moving on from this. So I'm asking you to write an annotated bibliography, and mine is a little bit different because it requires a paragraph of summary and a paragraph of evaluation. So why do we write this? Some of you had some really good ideas. You want to summarize the article and know what the author is saying, and that's excellent. That's half the battle right there. You write an annotated bibliography so you can understand what the author or authors are saying, what they're writing, what their argument is, maybe how they get there, maybe what their methodology is a little bit. And then for me, I want you to evaluate the sources. Okay? So also, the other reason why you have to do it is it's for a grade. So think about that. Now, each one of these annotations, and there will be 5 of them in total, you need to create a 250 to 300 word annotation. And it's 2 paragraphs, 125 to 150 words summarizing the key points, and then 125 to 150 words of evaluation. Now, the summary should be quite simple, right? Now, please don't do the bad student thing where you look at the abstract for the article and you copy that and paste it right in and say, that's my summary. No, that's your plagiarism. So please do not do that. You can kind of look at the abstract to get a sense of what the summary should look like. But in general, you want to think about, creating your own summary and just do it to the best of your ability. It may not sound as good as the abstract. I mean, the people who write these articles, if they're any good at writing, it's because they've been doing it for decades, and sometimes, depending on your field, the writing's just not going to be engaging or interesting. So, just, do your best, have your own style with that. These are the things that I want you to evaluate on: currency, authority, reliability, objectivity and subjectivity, bias, academic style and conventions, and tone. Now, this is quite an extensive list, isn't it? I mean, is this kind of a large list of things to think about? No, we're good. All right. Well, let's think about
that's Professor. That's for our biography, correct?
Yeah, the annotated bibliography. This would be paragraph 2.
Can you go back to the last slide?
Yeah, certainly. This one?
Yeah. Okay.
So they're all here. Now, let's talk about definitions. Now, this is paragraph 2. Remember, paragraph 1's just a summary. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Paragraph 2 gets a bit tricky for some people, many people. So you want to think about currency. How new, or old, how current is the text. For this class, I'm putting a 10-year window. So if it was published in 2000, and we'll go from 2009 through now, because a lot of the 2020 stuff hasn't come out yet. So we can go as old as 2009 and as new as yesterday, or
Well,
whenever.
we shouldn't even count 2020. That's not even a year. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We'll go from 2009 through 2000. Yeah, I'm giving you that extra year. You know, we're not, and I mean, frankly, I think a lot of people up to this point would rather not count 2020 at all.
exactly.
Just get rid of it and be done. Although, chances are next year's going to be no better. Sorry, I'm being very cynical today. Oh my gosh, my screen just. Hello. Okay, sorry about that. I moved my mouse to the wrong place. All right, we're not doing group work. Don't worry about that. We'll do that after we meet with Jana. So currency, how new or old is the text? In the world of business, new information is generally going to be more valuable than old information. That's because business works at lightning speed, okay? Now, if you get at me in my own research life, when I'm researching, authors that have been dead since the mid 90s, actually, well, a couple of them died last year, but still, people who are writing and publishing in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, I'm all about, let's go old school. That's perfectly fine. But for this class and in this department, we've got to keep it new, fresh, hot information. Fresh, hot information. Drag this apart. Hey, there we go. Each evaluation should be about 125 to 150 words. So the full annotation will be 300. Half of that for summary, half for evaluation. And again, I'm not going to word count if it looks right. And trust me, if you do all of this, you're going to have 150 words easy. I've got a template for this as well that I'll show you. Authority. Think about who the author is. It's right here in the text. Authority. Does the author have academic credentials or experience? Again, I think, in some fields, it's all about the academic credentials. It's all about the PhD, all about the doctorate, what have you. I think that's putting way too much on the shoulders of people in academia. And I think experience is certainly valid. I think it's perfectly valid if you're researching healthcare management, a specific, maybe the necessity of having patient care experience to being a good healthcare manager. If you have a source from somebody who maybe spent 25 years as an RN, a nurse, and then has spent another 20 years as a manager within a healthcare practice, I think that person's probably got, maybe more credibility than somebody that has a PhD in nursing to write about these things. So I would say they're at least equal. Okay. Reliability. This gets a bit tricky. This is where you have to research and Google the journal names and the journal publishers. So that's why you need to have all that, bibliographic information. You want to make sure that the publishers that you're working with employ a peer review system. Now, this is not going to happen for your trade journals, and I'm going to address what to do when these things are not valid in a moment. But generally speaking, do any of you know what peer review is in academic writing?
Usually peer review is where you have the original writer, editors, and then above them is a supervisor that allows or denies such the publication.
You're very close, but within academic publishing, there's even a new wrinkle. What happens is an author or a group of authors write their paper. Then they submit it to the editor of a journal. So you're correct about that. The editor reads it first. That's editorial review. It decides whether or not she or he or they think it's a good fit for their journal. Then what they do is they find two experts in the field, two people with a massive amount of expertise, and they send that article, they anonymize it, they take all the authors' names off, they send that article out to those two other experts, and they say, hey, read this and give us your opinion of it. And the two peer reviewers, their job is to tear that article to shreds, to look for every single problem, no matter how small, throughout the paper. And that is their job at this point, is to basically do their best to use their knowledge and their experience to destroy that paper. And then what happens? There's usually a couple things that happens. If they are successful in completely destroying the paper, and both peer reviewers are, the editor will get a note, and the peer reviewers work independently, by the way. They don't know each other is reviewing it. They will send their reports back to the editor with recommendations. Absolutely not. Never publish this. I feel, less intelligent for having read it. Publish or accept with major corrections, i.e. publish with major revisions. Publish with minor revisions, or publish as is. That last one almost never happens. Almost never happens. Usually it's the publish with minor corrections that comes out. Then the editor will synthesize that information and they will return that paper to the author with the anonymized feedback and criticism of the two other experts. And then the author or authors of the paper have a choice about whether or not they want to make those corrections or not. And if they say, I'm not making any corrections, then they have to go try to find another home for that article. It's a rigorous process. This is why when people talk about good quality, scientific research, that's why it matters. It's because everybody's putting their own reputation on the line to vet every single letter, every character in a 7,000, 8,000 word article. It's a rigorous process. I have been through it myself on many occasions, both as an author, as an editor, and as a peer reviewer. And I can tell you it's rigorous. I never feel good about writing a critical peer review for somebody. Okay, that's not true. I did one time, I felt really good about it, but the person was just so pompous, couldn't help it. So that's what we mean about reliability. Peer review, editorial review. Objectivity and subjectivity. This is sometimes difficult for people, but basically everything in the paper has to be backed up and guided by facts and data. No alternative facts allowed. We only want real facts, good facts, actual facts, and data. And when we think about objectivity versus subjectivity, I want you to think about grading, because that's, I think, a really easy way for people to understand this. That's how it was explained to me when I was in my third year of college. So I'm passing the knowledge on. I had an art history professor, and he was really nice. And he said, if we were getting to the end of the term, and he said, if you have a problem with the grade I give you, or the grade you are, get how he said it. There are two things you can do. You can either immediately go to the dean and request a grade investigation. That's perfectly within your rights. You're absolutely fine to do that. Or you can come and talk to me about it first, and then if you're not satisfied, go to the dean. And he said, if you go to the dean, I am bound by college and university policy to produce an objective answer to the query. That is the only thing I am allowed to give. I have to open up my grade book. We have to do the math, and objectively, the data shows X is your grade. And if I'm wrong, we fix it. But if I'm not, it stays. That's objective, cold, hard facts. If you come to me, and again, this is him talking, not me talking. If you come to me and with a grade, with a concern about your grade, he's like, I will look at it objectively. I'll look at the numbers first to see if I made a mistake, but then I can apply some subjectivity. See about how you did in class. What, were you there all the time? Were you engaged? All of those things. And there may be a benefit to that approach, because I can subjectively say, you know what, I was a bit harsh here. I can bump you from a C to a B or whatever. So again, objectivity, cold hard facts. Subjectivity, I'm allowing a little of my personal feelings, my subjective position influence it. Your job is to look for objectivity in these papers. Is it possible for any human being to only ever be 100% objective? No. But what you want is a paper or materials that are much more objective than subjective. Clear? I know this seems like so much information for 8:15 in the morning. Okay, bias. A lot of times bias is easy to detect. It's like anything else. You may not realize what it is until you read something that's biased, and then you're like, oh, yeah, this person is clearly biased. For many years, academic publications did not require conflict of interest statements. And what happened is that people were being paid by organizations to do research and write papers, and those organizations would often have an interest in the outcome of the research. And so there was a bit of a shenanigans, if you will. This happened a lot with tobacco. Big tobacco companies for years and years and years spent a lot of money funding institutes and working with medical professionals to write papers that said that there was no link between cigarette smoking and lung cancer. And it gave the tobacco companies a lot of cover. They wrote saying, look, there's all these papers that say that you can smoke 12 packs a day and, it doesn't have any bearing on whether or not you get lung cancer. And, the academic publishers came to realize that, that there was a problem. And so now everybody has to sign conflict of interest statements. I have to sign them when I write about an author who's been dead since 1997. I have to sign conflict of interest statements stating that the author's estate is not compensating me in any way, shape, or form, and no organization that would financially benefit from my research, which there is no organization that benefits from my research, is paying me to do it. So look for those. I'm not asking you to look like and go dig deep and be a private investigator on this. I'm just asking you to identify whether or not there is a conflict of interest statement that's been signed and that's on file, or that's been declared. And it's usually quite simple in the front matter of the journal article. It's the authors declare that they have no conflict of interest or they have not been paid by any organization. Or they just say the other thing. We were sponsored by X organization and they provided a great deal of funding for this paper. Either way, just know that it's there. Academic style and conventions. Does it look right? Does it look like? Does it have an introduction, a body, a conclusion? Are they using proper academic English? Does it have a full and complete reference list and in-text citations? Those are the big things, endnotes, footnotes, bibliography, reference page, something like that. Does it look like an academic paper? Is there evidence throughout of research? That's easy. You can tell that just by looking at it. You don't even have to read. You just have to look for the footnotes, the endnotes, or the parentheticals. And tone. Most of the stuff you're reading is going to be, scholarly, academic, or informative. But, occasionally you'll come across stuff that's like sarcastic and funny that's making a good point. Everybody with me so far? Oh dear, I feel like I've lost all of you. Okay, good. Few responses. I'm like, I have bored them to sleep yet again. Okay. Now, there is absolutely always an out clause for these things. What I mean by that is, say an article is older than the 10-year window, but you really like it. It really speaks directly to what you're writing about. Include it just in your annotated bibliography. You would note that it has low currency because it is 15 years old. And then add another sentence that just says, however, this article speaks directly to my problem. It's foundational in the field. Okay. You are rarely going to find anything that meets all of these criteria. So it's definitely good to have out clauses. For the authority, sometimes you cannot find the author's credentials, so it's undetermined. Undetermined is a great word. Their authority is undetermined. I could not find anything about Robert W. Jones II. I have no idea if he has any sort of formalized education or experience to write about this. Again, just be honest. Now, You have to pass the 5-minute Google test if you do that. The 5-minute Google test is if I am grading your work and I see that you say that the author's credentials, experience are not determined, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that author's name and I am going to slap it in Google, and I'm going to spend no more than 5 minutes looking. Probably not even 5 minutes. Aim for 5 minutes. And I'm going to see what I can find. And if I can find something about the author within 5 minutes, then I'm going to believe that over the course of the term, you unfortunately did not do the best job you could on locating that. It's not a failing grade that you'll get on that sort of thing, but it is, there are going to be, points off in that regard. Okay, are we clear on that? 5-minute Google test? Sweet. Okay. Reliability, same thing. I'm going to Google the journal and try to find out whether or not I can assess their peer review standards. Same, with objectivity and subjectivity, that's based on reading the text, so you're going to have to, do that. Bias, again, I can look at the front page and see if there's a conflict of interest statement, or when you Google the journal itself, they may say, we make all of our authors sign conflict of interest statements. You'll get 5-minute Google test. 5-minute eyeball test on academic style and conventions. I'll have a look at the article and say, oh yeah, there are no references. That's weird. Well done. And then tone. Again, aim for scholarly, academic, and informative. Okay. So we're not going to do group work. We're going to stop the screen share here very, very quickly. And what questions do you all have so far? A lot of information here. I get nervous when people have no questions. I can't possibly be that good at this job.
I have a question, but it's regarding my topic, so I figured.
Okay, yeah, let's have it.
So I had 2 topics in mind that I was thinking about using, and one related to sports and injuries, and the other one related towards what I do as a job, like bartending and stuff like that. I just figured with bartending, I'm not sure if there's really much that I could really go off of.
There might be. I mean, it just depends. I mean, any sort of business, and bartending is most assuredly a business, can have some interesting value for a paper. Again, do you want to open your own bar or pub or anything, or is that like
definitely something along the lines of that? Okay.
So again, what you might want to think about is what are the best practices involved in opening a bar or a pub.
Okay.
That's one way to start. You can look at I'm not sure if I know you kind of joined the group maybe after the first or second lesson, but I did post a video about topic selection, and I may have spoken about it in this class. I had a student who wrote a really cool paper this past spring where they wanted to open up a restaurant, and they wanted to open a seafood restaurant, and they were deeply concerned about overfishing and sustainable quote unquote aquaculture when it comes to opening a restaurant. And so they did a whole paper about, how to make this work. What's the CBA, the cost benefit analysis on this? Is it going to be better to do this? How much more am I going to have to charge my customers if I'm getting only, sustainably, ethically sourced, tuna, which is that's quite expensive. So again, he went into that paper and did research on it, and did kind of some research even onto, fishing population. So he was like doing research based on, Canadian and American fishermen up in the North Atlantic, and how the fish stocks have kind of gone down somewhat. So, so there's a number of ways to think about that sort of industry, be it bars, restaurants, what have you, where you can find a niche. You can find that kind of, that one thing that kind of gets you going and say, yeah, this is the type of bar I want to open. I only want to have, organic, alcohol or whatever, or I want to make sure that every cup, every straw that I use in my bar or nightclub has that chemical in it that glows green if date rape drugs get dipped in,
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Like there's always that niche that you can look at. You can see what other people have done and see the outcomes of it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great question. Great question.
Great
Yeah,
response.
no problem. I love questions. Okay. Yeah, the 5-minute Google search. Basically, that's me taking 5 minutes of my life and seeing if I can find information that you declare you cannot find. I figure you have several weeks to do this. And I've had several years of practice at this sort of thing. So I'm just going to take a couple minutes, type the author's name in Google, type the journal name into Google, and see if I can find the information quickly without, within a couple of minutes. And if I can, then I'll take points off because it's like, okay, well, you haven't done your work because you've had weeks to do this and I can find it in a couple of minutes. The other side of that is it's very easy to find this information if you deploy good Googling skills, which as students, hopefully your Google skills are quite strong, right? Everybody's Google skills quite strong. All right. Yeah, sure they are. Okay, so let me show you the template that I have for paragraph 2 of the annotated bibliography. And I encourage you, as much as you possibly can, to just use this. This is in a Word doc formula on Blackboard. Now, again, this is not your first paragraph. This is your second paragraph. These are fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks. You are fully encouraged to accurately fill in the blanks and use exactly this. This is the byproduct of a student who wrote down everything I said one day when we were talking about this and did a great, annotated bibliography. And so she has allowed me to kind of take her scribing of my words and translate it and give it to all of you. So you're welcome. So this text was published in 2016, therefore has a high degree of currency. The authors of this text do or do not, have X number of years of experience, or they have advanced degrees, in this field or that field. This experience or these degrees are relevant to the field of healthcare management. Therefore, they have a high degree of authority. This text was published by Sage Publications. This publisher does not have a peer review and editorial review system. Therefore, the text has a high degree of reliability. And the authors use data-driven or a fact-driven approach. Therefore, it has a high degree of objectivity, or it would be written the other way around. The authors do not use a data-driven approach, and they're writing about their feelings and their subjective nature of this material. Therefore, it has high subjectivity and low objectivity. There is no, some, a lot of detectable bias in this article. The author or all authors have declared they have no conflict of interest, or they have not. This article follows the form, style, and conventions of an academic article. There's usually a second sentence here that I like that says it has an introduction, body, conclusion, and it's thoroughly referenced. Oh yeah, there it is. Sorry, it's the next line. The article has a scholarly tone. If you're getting a peer-reviewed journal article, 99 times out of 100, scholarly tone is what you're going to have. Hint, hint. Now again, if it doesn't meet the criteria just stated, it doesn't mean you can't use the article. It doesn't mean that you can't put it on your annotated bibliography, and it doesn't mean that you cannot put it in your research paper. All you are doing is acknowledging what is lacking. Okay? This is not about finding perfection. This is about you developing the skills where you can evaluate something and say, it's good at this, it's bad at that, middle level at this. This is, again, I'm not going to, as long as you declare it, we're going to be okay. Now, grant you, some of your sources should have high degrees of these things, but some of them may not. And certainly your trade publication articles, they are, generally speaking, they're not going to be in academic style. They're not going to have, their tone might be professional, but not academic. They're going to be short. They probably won't be peer reviewed. They're editorially reviewed, but they won't be peer reviewed. So those are perfectly fine things. Nothing is essentially perfect. Journal articles are going to hit most of these, but You know, even those, there might be one or two things that are a bit awry. Now, to show you what this looks like in practice, right here. And again, these are all available on Blackboard under the research materials portion, under the research materials folder. This is an excellent annotated bibliography. This is the one that came from the student that helped me write that template. So as you can see, this is quite big. Now, Linda, if we have 5 references, are we supposed to have the annotated bibliography for all 5? Yes. Yes, one annotation like this for each of the 5, which is why I've said this is a lengthy part of the project. You will only use 3 of the sources in your paper, but that's because when you research things, chances are you know, being able to course correct and knowing that you have some material that doesn't fit, that's a big part of it. That's actually going to take you far in the capstone. I just had a meeting with the dean. Yes, I'm actually having a series of meetings with him about the capstone. And one of the things he is very interested in is knowing that students can course correct and change direction as needed. There is no fault in that. It's just about knowing that you need to do it early enough. And researching 2 more things than you actually need for the paper is one way of encouraging this process. I'm not sure how many of you were super quick at looking at the template I put up for paragraph 2, but that template is 208 words long. You may have them. You may not use all of them because there's some language at the bottom, but that template, that part of the template is already at least 130, 140 words long. You just have to fill it in for each one of these and write the summary. So my goal here is to have you find the information, but not spend an undue amount of time thinking about how you're going to write this stuff. Is that clear? Yes. So again, yeah, I definitely, I don't want you to spend your entire life looking for these materials. And I don't want you to spend your entire life annotating for these materials. So use a template. Love templates, love scaffolds. You're not bound to. You don't have to use it. If you want to make your life more difficult, do it without them. Clear? I'm not forcing you into one way or the other. Just highly suggesting that since I've already written half of it for you, you might want to use it.
Okay, Professor, what was that template for again?
That template that I just showed, the fill in the blank, was for the second part of this. So this, oh boy, this annotation tool is wonky. So yeah, it was for this, yeah, of the annotated bibliography.
Okay.
That I just circled. Wow, look at that. Sorry, I've never used the annotation tool in here before, so I'm a bit fascinated. Yes, all of this is in Blackboard under course materials, research materials. Excellent questions. Yeah, again, I will not, and I do not expect you to go off and know how to do these things. That is unkind. I was trying to think of the right word. It's not good. It's not teaching. I am taking you to a different level. And so this is why I'm providing scaffolds, templates, etc. So yeah, course materials, reference materials, annotated bibliography, evaluation, scaffold. You know, this model is practically perfect. The citation looks good. Paragraph 1 for the summary looks good. We're in, you know, this is good. If you follow it, you will be in such good shape. Okay, let me do something else. Sorry, I just have to update the attendance real quick. I think I saw Jalen come in. Is that correct, Jalen? Are you still here? All right. How many of you have utilized the library, the digital library here at lovely Palm Beach State College? Yay! Some of you have. Hopefully all of you have. here's the deal about the library. Even the Lake Worth campus, which I think has the largest square footage of any of the campus libraries, you don't have to leave your home to do this or your office. You only need to use the digital library. Now for students, it can be a bit wonky to log into the digital library because you need the number off the back of your ID card and maybe a PIN code and all of that sort of thing, which you should know that. But there is another way. Oh, somebody wants to come in, I think. Oh yeah, come back in, lovely. There is another way. Yeah, if you access it through Panther Web, you need all that stuff. But if you go to Blackboard, if you go to the homepage of Blackboard, you should have this link right here. Palm Beach State eLibrary. Do we all see this? Yeah. If you click this, it's going to take you right in. You've already logged into Blackboard. It's already here. What you want to make sure that you have is your name, not my name, your name right up here, because you can save things to your library account. Janet's going to talk about this a little bit more next week when she comes to class to talk with us. But what I want you to think about is what's available for you, because I do things a little bit different than maybe Janet does. I like to use this original landing page here, and Janet really kind of bypasses it, but I tend to like it. So let's say modern healthcare. That's interesting. I don't remember the last time I was looking at this. We're going to go with keywords. If you use the front page of the library, I beg you, use the advanced search. Ooh, positive leadership. And maybe we'll put healthcare management in here, right? Somebody was writing about academic advising. All right, as long as I spelled everything correctly, we're good. I suggest no matter which database or which way you get into things, always use the advanced search. It's going to make your research life a little bit easier because you can add more filters and you can always take them away. So here I want to look up positive leadership in healthcare management. Boom. Let's see what comes up. Oh, there are 48 items. Not a lot, but there are 48 of them. And if you look over here on the sidebar, you can filter things based on publication year. You can base them on academic journals, their ebooks, magazines, which might be like trade publications. And then you can scroll down through here. Loving anything with full text?
IT Fabun. No. It
Yes.
start at 27.
I'm sorry, what was that?
27, même genre.
Was that aimed at me, Lovely, or are you having another conversation?
Ben comment l'écrit?
I think you're having another conversation. Okay, there we go. So yeah, as you can see here, 48. So not a lot, but not a little. Always a good place to start. You could, but I'm going to show you something else. This is good. This is the wide net, this particular screen. And you can filter down by I only want to look at academic journals. If you speak Mandarin, I believe this is in Pinyin script. Again, you can use that. So again, if you do just academic journals, it's going to take you in here. You want to be careful with anything that is full text. Anything that is full text. Clear there? Now, say you don't find anything here. This is when you go to your databases. The college has a ton of databases for you. For business, ABI Inform is good. Business Source Complete is a good one as well. There's stuff in here for healthcare management, but I'm going to go here to the EBSCO Business Source Complete. And hopefully it should take me in here. And eventually the internet will catch up. Hey, there we go. Business Source Complete is really good for anything, as you might imagine, for businesses. So I always, again, advanced search and say I want leadership and management. And, you know, that's quite, I like how it does like form fill, leadership and management. Now, say you want to find all my search terms. I'm going to put, you know, yes, I want all my search terms, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to Boolean these things out because I like it. And I'm just going to add management down below. Oops, misspelled leadership. We're going to go leadership styles. And let's go authoritarianism. Authoritarian leadership. Absolutely germane to nothing going on in the world today. You want full text. Now, maybe you want scholarly and peer-reviewed journals. You can click this. Here's the deal. When it comes to that evaluation, I ask you if a journal has peer-reviewed. I'm going to allow you to believe the checkbox. I'm going to allow you to believe the database. So say you want to do that. Maybe, though, you know, you can go with your publication type over here, academic journals, books, case studies, conference papers. If we scroll all the way down, though, trade publications. Because a lot of students have difficulty finding trade publications in their field. So maybe, you know, it's a good idea to think about looking here first and seeing what is available within your field. Like what kind of trade publications are available. Again, you can do all languages. You can go just English, you know, whatever you want to do. I usually leave document type blank for me. And then let's see here. Where's my search button? There it is. It's hidden. There is but one trade publication on leadership styles that also mentions authoritarian leadership. So that's maybe not a lot. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to go back and I've got my, I don't know why it says 2011 to 2011. See if that'll update and gives it. See, we're still only getting one thing. So you can take some things out. We're going to get rid of authoritarian leadership. We'll fix this. And now again, we're finding everything. We've wiped out everything that has our key terms. Let me show you one more thing in here. I wanted to bring up a good selection of trade publications. And let's see here. I want trade publications or leadership styles. Sometimes it's a bit weird to try to clear all these things. Okay, we'll do it this way. Leadership styles, trade publications, search. Let's see if we get. Okay, so now a large amount of full text trade publication articles. Just going to double check that you can utilize. The beauty of this is, say you find this article on Leader's Instinct, PDF full text. You can download these things and keep them on your computer or on a separate drive or the cloud. Highly suggest you do that. This is a short article, right? It's like 2-3 pages long. And now you have an idea of a journal that you might look into. This is the trainingjournal.com. So that's going to be a trade journal, trade publication involved in training, possibly management training, possibly leadership training. So you might want to research that journal using Google to find out what it is that they do. The key takeaways here: stay away from Google and stay away from Google Scholar. See, there's one other thing. Oh yeah, let me go back into that. Sorry. What you'll get here is, well, you got the detailed record and the full text. I'm sorry, I'm gonna move our Zoom chat here, or our group chat here. Oftentimes, there's a little citation button. So you can cite APA, and it will show you exactly how you should cite this. Now, I'm gonna warn you, this is most likely still APA 6, not APA 7. So you may just have to double check it and make sure that it is correct. APA 7 is kind of new, so some of these databases have not updated as yet. Are we kind of following along what I'm doing here? The key takeaway is you're not going to break anything by going into these databases and rooting around and looking for things. You're just going to spend your time. And the more effectively you think about your keywords, the more effectively you think about what databases you're looking in, the more effectively you drill down like that, the better use of time you're going to have. You know, you're going to be able to work more efficiently, more effectively. No, there is not a link on Blackboard for this database. There is only the link to the eLibrary. But if you go to databases A through Z, it's Business Source Complete is this particular database. And there are a number of, there's some that are bespoke for the healthcare field. There are some that are bespoke for entrepreneurship. And I'm going to let Janet introduce some of those to you because they're changing all the time with subscriptions. So I'm not 100% sure which ones are even still active through the college. But she's going to be more up to date on that next week. Let's see here. One other thing I wanted to show you in the databases. Okay, under ABI Inform is another one for businesses. You can also go subjects. There was two other things I wanted to show you here. So I've got A to Z databases. There's also, if you go into these, you should get databases by subject. So you can just filter for business, 21 databases, that keyword business. You can look at health and medicine. There's only a couple of them that are going to be available. And most of them are going to be aimed at the clinical side of things. But there might, again, if you're going into the medical field or medical management, healthcare management, these might be some databases that you are interested in. If you need some legal stuff, going to be here for you. But again, most people are going to go business, technology. Where's tech? There's not. Where in the world is technology? There used to be. If they got rid of the technology databases, that's gonna.
You might want to go to all subjects and then revert back to.
Yeah, that's a good idea. All subjects. Then let's see. Thank you. Computers and technology, which can have like the IEEE or the iQuaddy, which is like one of the greatest databases for that sort of thing. And then there's, trade and industry. So it's all going to be in here. It's just a matter of trying to match up what you're doing with what database you need. Going to introduce you to one more thing here. This is called Academic Writer. Again, this is under your A to Z databases, and it's this one, Academic Writer. It used to be APA Style Central. This is where you get all the APA information you could ever hope to have, and probably some that you never wanted. There's quite a few things here. There's, opportunities to learn about APA style at heading levels. There's opportunities to learn about, references. You can manage your references through here. It's perfectly fine to do that. And you can write through here. Now, am I logged in yet? It does ask you to create an account, which I've done. And it is, you can use whatever email you want. I suggest for the time being, utilizing your Palm Beach State College email address for this. This can be very beneficial now. It's going to be more beneficial in the future, especially if you're doing group work and group paper assignments, because when you go in here to do the, when you want to write a paper, this provides you with all of the basic formats, all 9 of them. For my class, really, you're probably just going to go basic paper. Basic paper. Your students, so you want to do student assignment. What that means is it leaves out some of the elements. And then paper title, my paper. This is available in the cloud as long as the cloud is active. Again, you can add different sections within the body, so it will format everything for you. This is great if you're working in teams because you can assign different people to different sections of the paper. References, You can add and import your references. You can do it manually. You can search for the API or the DOI, ISBN number, that sort of thing. It will automatically import them. If you need tables, figures, and appendices, all right here. Cool thing about this, you can check your headings and make sure that everything is formatted correctly. You can check your references and match your references and citations to ensure that if you've got a reference on your reference page, it shows up in your paper, and vice versa. If you have something, an in-text citation, it will match your reference page. If you are incredibly nervous about writing something with APA style, this is the way around it. You can export it to PDF, you can export it to docx. This is, I think, a great way to conquer some of that fear of the unknown with this sort of thing. So it's Academic Writer. It's available through the library. It's free. And again, you can store numerous papers here. In fact, let me see. Do I have multiple papers in here yet? Yeah, but if you go to My Papers, it'll have like a bunch of stuff. Fantastic tool. And again, I think it's maybe a little better than the one in Microsoft Word. The one in Microsoft Word sometimes gives me trouble with formatting and sometimes gives me a little difficulty with the difference between APA 6 and APA 7, which the differences are minor. But still, it's, you know, maybe not a perfect tool. This is really nice. And it's developed, written, maintained, and updated by the APA. So you know it's always going to be in the most current style. Oh yeah, here it is, Collaborate. So you can add a new user and assign sections. Let me tell you, when you write your capstone, which is a 5-chapter project with you and 4 of your closest friends, this kind of thing could be quite valuable because you can do your work and there's ultimate accountability for everybody to do their work or not do their work. All right then, how many of us are scared? Little fear, that's okay. That is okay. Oh, stop my screen share. Fear is okay. You just don't want the fear to cripple you. Okay, that's what you don't want. Crippling fear is bad. Fear can be a good motivator. I want to show you one trick that I have learned through my life as a researcher. Share my screen with y'all one more time. And that's this. Google. Google works. Google is an excellent source for you. I'm not suggesting that you do your research based on Google. I am, though, suggesting that there are some elements of your research that can be easier if you were to use Google. For example, say you want to understand about the Journal of Healthcare Management. You're looking to see if they're peer reviewed. You're looking to see if they're editorial reviewed. Boom, go right to their homepage, Journal of Healthcare Management, and go to About the Journal. You know, and it will tell you it's the official journal of the American College of, you know, this, that, and the other, published bi-monthly. It's peer reviewed. You're done with that part. It's providing healthcare leaders with information. And then under the authors section, it'll tell you about the peer review process again, but boom, right there. The other side of this, and I've already kind of come out of the databases a little bit, when you get a journal article from the databases, it's going to have the front matter where it's going to tell you about the author. There's almost always going to be an author bio, which will tell you their skills, experience, their credentials, that sort of thing. And then there's also going to be, you know, conflict of interest. So again, you may not have to go to the journal webpage for a lot of things, but certainly to determine if it's peer reviewed, right to the journal. Okay, the other thing that Google is good for is this. It's not good for cybersecurity. Google's actually quite bad at it, really. But let's say you type in cybersecurity because you want to write a paper on computer security. The most obvious thing on this page is the Wikipedia entry right here. right? I mean, that sticks out, jumps out at you. So, like as not, most people will always go to Wikipedia as a first port of call to define what a thing is. I don't have a problem with that. I think if you're trying to understand something, Wikipedia does a great job of drilling the information down so you can understand what the thing is. Now, should you ever cite Wikipedia? Nope, no, no, that's correct. No, no, never, not, yet, nine, never. Don't know no in too many other languages. Never, ever cite Wikipedia. But it's a good place to go to get a sense of what things are, right? So what's the value of it for your research process? It's very simple. It's not any of this. And I'll be honest with you, there's a great article called The Hive by a guy named Marshall Poe, which talks about how much truth value is in Wikipedia. So it is there and it is quite valid. But you can't cite any of this. Nope, nope, none of this. Garbage, 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 useless, terrible. Jeez, how many? Okay, we're almost there. Aha. What's this? This is a reference page. And most really good Wikipedia pages have thorough, detailed reference lists. Now, you can't cite any of the garbage that came above that, but maybe you're curious about the intersection of cybersecurity and politics. Don't know why anybody in America would be worried about that this year. And so you find this article by Tim Stevens. It's right here, Global Security, New Directions. And then you find things like a DOI. Now, a DOI is a digital object identifier. All journal articles that are published through academic journals have DOIs. Well, the recent ones, not all of them from a few years ago. This is a relatively new invention. But a DOI is basically like a web address, but for journal articles. And the good ones have them. That doesn't mean that this one is not good because it doesn't have one. Because what you can look at on the reference page is where it's published. Oh, this is the Journal of Digital Forensics, Security and Law, Volume 12, Issue 2. That sounds like all the stuff I need for a regular journal article. Let's have a little looky-loo there. Ooh, what about this? Global Security, New Directions, Theory and Methods. Let's have a looky-loo there. And then here we go. This, again, you'll have to research the journal and get some information. But this can certainly, it's very tiny. Oh, you just have the abstract here, excuse me. So again, they may want you to log in and buy this. But, you can read the abstract and determine whether or not the journal article is of any value to you or any potential value. The other thing journal articles do, especially like when they only publish the abstract like this, is you get another complete reference list. So if you're running into a brick wall with your research, you can kind of follow a breadcrumb trail, much like Hansel and Gretel. Well, no, they followed the rocks. The breadcrumbs got eaten. Much like Hansel and Gretel from the fairy tale, you're following a trail. Hopefully not to a witch's house is going to eat you, but hopefully to some kind of research epiphany. You'll find a list of articles. Go and look up some of them. See what they have to say. There are going to be some that are going to be in the zone, in the range that you want. Reference lists are great. There's two reasons why we do references. For students, we want to make sure you're doing everything correctly and you're giving proper credit. The other side of it is for when people read your material, they might want to read the sources you're citing to get a better understanding of what you're talking about. So here's, is it? Okay, I thought maybe the whole thing was right here. Oh, maybe it is. Oh, it is right here. Beautiful. So again, then you got this other one here. King's College London, Security and Law, or whatever it was called. Short article, 4 pages. This is very well sourced for a 4-page article. So again, if you're running into brick walls, Wikipedia can provide a first step. You just have to go to the right places. don't go to like www.robsblog.com, right? Just, look for things that are sourced with journal articles. And I don't want you to do a lot of your research through Wikipedia, but I am trying to educate you on the value of this and the ability to get started. Because sometimes you go, kind of moving around, looking in the databases, and you don't find anything. And that's really frustrating. And, you want to throw your computer off the desk and, go live on a mountaintop somewhere. Don't get to that state. Look for other ways of finding material. The other thing, synonyms. I had a student in my second year of teaching here at the college, nice guy, he's a bit older, he was in his 70s, was researching how, one could draw a line from the old Sears catalog through digital and e-commerce, back around to, in-person shopping. And when he was Googling, he kept Googling in-person shopping, or in-person stores, in-person commerce. And he wasn't finding anything, nothing in the databases. And he came to me one day, he's like, I'm finding nothing on e-commerce versus in-person shopping. To which I said, that's got to be impossible. There's got to be material in the library for it. And I sat him down at my computer, said, type in how you're doing. Let me see how you're doing this. Take me through your process. And he typed exactly that, e-commerce versus in-person. Fair enough. It's a nice way of putting it. But there's a problem. Almost nobody refers to in-person commerce as in-person commerce. The language of the discipline is brick and mortar stores. And when he changed in-person to e-commerce versus brick and mortar, like millions of things showed up for him. So sometimes you want to think about synonyms, keywords, the language of the discipline when you are researching things. Any questions? Heavy class today, right? Yes, you can have a librarian help you, of course. But if you're at home, like I was always doing my research when I was a student at 3 and 4 in the morning, very difficult to get a librarian on the phone. Heavy class, right? A lot of materials. Yeah, the chat feature does work. They didn't have that when I was in school. I'm old. I'm jealous. Students today don't know how lucky you are. Pandemics, crippling job market, an economy in shambles. You're so lucky. No questions about this? I think you'll probably develop. Oh, go ahead.
For the reading response, the APA reference for that, do we use the original date published or the revised date?
Just use the original date the article was published for the reading response. And with the reading response, I do want to point this out. Only use the text I have provided you and your brain. Don't do any other outside research for this. This is you responding to a text. Is that clear? Don't make work for yourselves. You have enough to do. No problem. Yeah, I'm a big believer in not doing busy work. Okay, 2 other quick things. We may actually get out of here early today. I don't know if that's okay with everybody or not, but 2 other quick things. You can use an interview with an industry professional. Just make sure that you cite it correctly. Okay? And again, you'll have to evaluate the person based on my annotated bibliography. It'll have to show up on the annotated bib, but sometimes there is value in getting really good information directly from somebody in industry. So feel free to do that. You can work with me or you can work with Janet about citation on that. It's in the APA books. It's also, if you use any of the relevant templates or APA citation tools that are out there, it will cover all of that for you. Just do know, even if they're your bestie and they've been working in the industry for 5 or 6 years, you're going to have to critically evaluate them for their authority level. And again, there won't be any peer review. process, which is fine because it's an interview. Scholarly style probably won't happen because it's an interview and more of a conversation. I only want one of those, and we can use that in place of something, and we can talk about what you will use an interview in place of. Are any of you considering interviews now that I say that?
Could you use a podcast?
Maybe. I prefer you to conduct did you conduct the interview on your podcast?
No. I just, in general, could we use a podcast as like an interview or a
If you can't find a trade publication, then yeah, a podcast for the industry will work for that. Sure.
Okay.
Yes, Mariana, you can. Yeah. So, because this is something that came up in my capstone meeting. I don't teach capstones, by the way. I know I keep talking about them like I do, but I try to help people get through the capstone because it can be quite difficult. And I'm working with the team in the department to try to set up ways that the capstone can be better for you. And one of the things that came up is interviewing industry professionals, so perfectly valid. So we're going to wrinkle that in here. And that just came up the other day. So that's why it's not on the assignment sheet as a viable option. But yeah, if you can't find a trade journal, interviewing somebody or an industry specific podcast. So I'm gesturing at your avatar, Lucas. I know you can't actually see that I'm doing that, but that's where you are in my field of view. Okay, there was, like I said, 2 other things. That was one other thing. Interviews. Honestly, I think we're at a point today, and again, we don't normally get out early, but I really feel like today is a day where you all could stand to be out of here a bit early. There's been a lot of information covered. You probably need to walk away for a bit and maybe process some of this. Am I correct in assuming that? I can keep going if you'd like. Okay, let's go ahead and call it. I'm gonna post this recording to our class folder for week 2, so that you can review it in case you have concerns about what I said. Oh, you're welcome. Again, I'm not going to hold you here just because we have to be here for another hour. There's no point. Go and do some work. It's not healthy to sit in front of a computer for this long. Okay, I'll stick around for a bit if anybody has any questions, but I am going to go ahead and stop the recording now so that it will be maybe not too long. All right, have a great day. Be in touch if you have any questions or concerns.